Welcome to Beyond Your Balance Sheet from the Sedoric Group of Steward Partners Global Advisory. I'm Laura Canoy. Today, we're looking at continuing care retirement communities, or CCRCs. These offer a different model for aging in terms of finances and care. We'll find out how they work and the questions that come up around these arrangements. With us is Cathleen Toomey, host of the podcast Seniority Authority and Vice President of Marketing for the RiverWoods Group, the largest not-for-profit family of continuing care retirement communities in New Hampshire. And Cathleen, welcome to Beyond Your Balance Sheet. It's great to have you.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here, Laura. Thank you.
Also joining us is Tom Sedoric, partner and executive managing director of the Sedoric Group of Steward Partners Global Advisory. And Tom, a big welcome to you as well.
Thanks, Laura.
So, Kathleen, how is aging different today, and how does that affect your work in this field of continuing care retirement communities?
I'm so glad you asked that question, Laura, because almost everything is different today for aging. We are living longer than any other generation. So our parents' generation and our grandparents' generation, their life expectancy was about 65, which is why Social Security was enacted in 1940 when the life expectancy was 65. Today, our life expectancies are 85 and up. So we are living longer than ever before, and we have more options than any other generation that came before us. But the question is understanding what those options are and planning for that longer life.
So, Kathleen, do you find that people who are approaching aging now are looking back at their parents' experiences and saying, okay, that's what I'll do?
Exactly right. And there is so much that is new right now in this field. Our parents look back to their parents and they did not live long. They may have been in an old-fashioned, quote unquote, nursing home. But they didn't have very many options. Today, we have more options, but people just don't know about them. So they don't know to even ask the question, what is a new model for living longer and healthier?
Oh, so okay, let's talk about that new option. Your field again, Kathleen, continuing care retirement communities. Now, recognizing there's a lot of variety among these organizations, just give us a basic overview of how these are set up and how they work.
Thank you so much for asking the question. And it is a mouthful, isn't it? Continuing Care Retirement Communities, or CCRCs. They're also sometimes called life care communities. There's 1,900 around the country. About 80% of them are not-for-profit. The majority of them are not-for-profit. And what they are is an insurance product that looks like a condominium or home community. It's an insurance product where you move in to a CCRC when you are 62 years or better, and you can live independently. As you age, if you need additional care, whether that's assisted living, memory support, or nursing care, you can move as your needs, health needs dictate within the community. So you have care for many levels of aging. The challenge is, the advantage is it's a financial benefit because it is more financially affordable than waiting and going into a place on your own when you're sick and need care. And many of them leave a legacy for your children. The other benefit is that you are living in a community. You are making new friends. You have lots of activities and fitness opportunities and dining opportunities and social opportunities. So you create a new connection, new world of friends in this organization. Meanwhile, knowing that the work of living, the work of home maintenance is gone, the work of mowing and shoveling snow and preparing dinner every night, you don't have to worry about that, so that you can focus on what you enjoy. And it gives you a new lease on life. So many of these organizations now, people are looking to them, people who are mid-60s early 70s and saying, this is a great choice because I can lead a more active life, a more independent life, but I have the care that I need when I need it. And if I'm with a spouse, my spouse has support because people age at different rates. But the challenge is that most people are not aware that this option exists.
Well, and we'll talk a little bit more about it as we go along about how it works and some of the ins and outs of people and how they get in. But Tom, I want to bring you into this. So what's your interest, Tom, in CCRCs? Is it personal? Is it professional?
Thanks for asking. It's a little bit of all of the above. And I also want to kind of dovetail on what Kathleen said at the end there, which is it's fascinating to me. I've practiced and served families for over almost 40 years. And it's fascinating to me how few people know, have even heard the term CCRC. So my interest comes from multiple angles. I'm the son of two adult parents. I'm an only child who chose to live at a CCRC, actually the one that Kathleen's affiliated with, called RiverWoods. I was on the board for a period. I have referred a number of families to CCRCs, RiverWoods being the one most local, so therefore they get a share, but there are others around the country, as Kathleen mentioned. So I look at it from multiple angles, knowing that we want to be not a burden on our children as we age and as demographics are unfolding. We know boomers have defined a lot of characteristics of our country, and they're defining how we age. And some people say they want to age in place, but who's going to take care of them if they age in place? So maybe they want a community like a CCRC.
Yeah, how do you talk to your clients, Tom, about this as a financial investment or a peace of mind enhancer? What are some of the conversations that you have with people?
So it's often an interesting conversation because there's a lot of denial out there. It's not a river in someplace else, but there's a lot of denial about we're aging. But I know I'm aging. I tried to put a deposit in at RiverWoods when I turned 50 years old, knowing I wanted to have a spot. They wouldn't take my money at the time, mind you.
You were too
But
young.
I was too young. But the reality is that you said it, Laura. We don't want to be a burden on our children. We want to provide them with peace of mind that they won't have to care for us. In many cases, they're forced into a role that they don't want to be in. And it's peace of mind for my family, for me in particular, which is I'm not going to be a burden. I'm going to be cared for. And there are all kinds of financial benefits that I won't go into in great detail, but because everybody's situation is unique. But there are financial benefits to CCRCs as well.
So let's talk a little bit more about the emotional aspects, Tom, since you started going there, not wanting to be a burden on your children and knowing that you're cared for. But I'm guessing beyond the nuts and bolts around, care and planning and finances, I'm sure there's a lot of emotional issues wrapped up and around this. And Kathleen, you first, go ahead, please. The emotional issues that you hear people really working through.
Well, I think Tom hit the nail on the head. It's denial. It is a lack of imagination. So people who are successful and have saved money and bought a home, educated their children, maybe bought a second home, planned for vacations, they can't imagine there's going to be a time when they may need help, when they are going to be, it's going to be a little harder to do stairs. It's going to be hard to drive at night. They just feel like their planning stops because they can't imagine they're going to need help. But part of that is fear, the fear of future self. I don't want to age. So I don't want to think about aging. So as Tom said, some of the most brilliant, successful people who have saved money just can't imagine this. And it's to their detriment because change is going to come for all of us. The next 5 years are going to look different than the last 5 years. Some good things, some bad things. But I encourage people to plan ahead, to seize the opportunity to change your life for the better, because you're going to find better things in a CCRC, but many people can't get by that. They are so connected to their homes, especially in New England. They feel that living in their own home is independence. And I will tell you, it is not, because you are going to need help. I care for my two 90-year-old parents who are very short-sighted and refuse to go to RiverWoods. And we have two caregivers. One's live-in full-time. It is a full-time job for me to manage their care. And as we get older and the boomers get older and more people decide not to go into the healthcare field, it's extremely hard to get help. So even people who are very wealthy, who are used to saying, I will bring everything in, it is going to be incredibly hard to find good, consistent, quality care at home.
So there's a demographic issue there, Kathleen, because you're right. A lot of the surveys show people would prefer to stay at home. They love their homes. They prefer to, as you say, quote unquote, stay independent. But given the labor shortages we're seeing among younger generations, you're saying, Kathleen, you may not be able to find somebody.
Well, you just look around and you drive down the street, and everyone from McDonald's to Starbucks to major businesses are looking for people. Kids want to work remotely. They don't want to work one-on-one with people. And when you talk about LNA care and nursing care, that is intimate care that cannot be done remotely.
No.
And this new generation does not want to get into that field. And it's going to be harder to find the kind of people that you want, again, consistently, because people also cycle out of these jobs quickly.
What about family dynamics? What do you observe? Because I'm guessing when you sit down with people to talk about CCRCs, it's not just an individual, it's a family or a couple.
Well, I love it when we see financial advisors like Tom, who are in the picture today. 16 years ago, when I first started at RiverWoods, you'd see maybe one or two financial advisors. Now you see everyone has a financial advisor. And shockingly, a lot of the financial advisors don't understand CCRCs either.
Wow. Go ahead, Tom. Yeah.
Yes, Tom.
So Kathleen mentioned the reluctance of her own folks to move into RiverWoods or something similar. And I faced the same challenge, particularly with my father. And as I like to explain to folks, your need for services starts to do this, and your ability to manage those services starts to do this. So this gap is going to be filled by something. It's going to be filled by family that may not be prepared to handle it. Hopefully it'll be filled by an institution like a CCRC, but not always. And then there's often a fire drill as those needs evolve and they expand. And I mentioned my father. He was very reluctant. He was dragging his feet, and it's no offense to my male colleagues, but it's often the male that's the problem. Women, for some reason, seem to get the fact that, gee, they're going to need some help. They don't want to cook meals all the time. And they want somebody to help care for the family and maybe for the aging spouse. But we guys seem to be very reluctant. So when you have the discussion, it's important to have it with both parties, not just one. And it's also quite useful to put the recommendation, they start to explore some of these things in writing, because that will have more impact than the spoken word. The spoken word is easy to deny and push it aside and say, no, I don't want to deal with that. But when you put it in writing, they tend to focus a little bit more, and then they circle back and say, well, tell me more about that.
Interesting. When you say put it in writing, Tom, do you mean show them the numbers?
I mean, show them the numbers, show them what it does to their plan. We're a very planning-based practice and have been for nearly 40 years. So when you show that it's very doable in their financial plan that you've crafted and been orchestrating for 20 years, in some cases 30 years in others, you show them, yeah, you can do this. You should probably do it so you're not a burden. Then they go, oh, okay. Gee, maybe I should explore this more.
Yeah, it's
And the
interesting.
challenge,
Yeah.
as Kathleen talked about, the labor shortage that's affecting all areas of our economy, is particularly acute in healthcare. And so why not use the power of numbers and use something, an institution where they can do the hiring and do the staffing that you may not be able to do individually.
So, Kathleen, who does the CCRC model not work for? Who might not fit well here?
So the CCRC model, as it stands now, you have to have some asset. Typically, that would be your home. So you would sell your home, and that would be the one-time entrance fee. And then your monthly fee, which is the operating fee for the community, would come out of your income and assets. So there's two criteria across the country. One is you have to pass a financial assessment, and second is a cognitive assessment. And the hardest thing for us is when we've worked with a couple for years, and perhaps, as Tom said, the husband is reluctant and the wife is interested, and they finally decide, yes, we want to do this. They financially qualify, then they have to do a cognitive assessment. If we find some significant cognitive loss, they won't qualify. And that's devastating because oftentimes when you're in a couple, he's good with names, she's good with faces, and you are a unit. But when you separate the two, sometimes we find there is cognitive loss. So my recommendation is consider this sooner than you think. If you think this is interesting, start exploring, do the research, have a meal, walk around, and look into it, because number one, you want to do it early enough that you can get on a wait list and there are wait lists at almost every CCRC now. Two, you want to do it when you can. And some CCRCs across the country will exclude for certain diseases. RiverWoods does not. Our three locations in Exeter, Exeter and Durham and Manchester don't do that. But the key is financially qualified and physically qualified.
So you have to have enough money for that big down payment to get in, and you have to have a reasonable base of health. Is that right, Kathleen?
Yes. When I say reasonable base of health, it really just, you can move in with Parkinson's, you can move in with needing oxygen. You have to be able to live safely, independently on your own. So that can mean any multitude of diseases. We know people are coming in with multiple chronic diseases. You just have to be able to get out of your home on your own if there's an emergency. So that's really all you need. And I should mention that nationally, CCRCs vary widely in price, but generally the larger home that you want, if you want a freestanding 2-bedroom, 2-car garage cottage, that will be more costly than if you want a studio in the same community. So although the prices range according to your area in the country, that is how they are priced based on the size of home that you would like.
And just to quickly clarify, Kathleen, so you need to have a baseline of independence in terms of being able to move yourself about. But once you're in a CCRC, you're in, right? No matter what kind of health issues come up. That's
That is the
wonderful,
that's a wonderful thing. So once you're in, then we have you. We will take care of you. And one of the things that people don't realize is how little Medicare covers for what we call the activities of daily living. And that is the stuff that is extremely hard to find help for: bathing, dressing, toileting, eating, showering, etc., medication management. The day-to-day help that you need is not covered. And so you have to pay for that out of pocket. It's much more reasonable to go to a CCRC, and you're being cared for by people who know you. who know you as you came in, from your entire life experience. You're not a person on a bed. You're not,
Yeah.
18B. You're, Tom Sedoric, Kathleen Toomey, Laura Canoy. They know who you are and what your preferences are. So it is as close to home, but better because you've got more skilled care than you would be at home.
So, Tom, weigh in here. Are there people who you meet in your work who might not fit well with the CCRC model?
Well, Kathleen touched on one of them, which are folks that may not have the resources, and there probably needs to be some model or some design of a institution that could serve that population. The majority of our clients can probably afford a CCRC. In many cases, they get sticker shock when they think, oh, I'm going to spend X to get in, the entrance fee or whatever. And we often try and explain to them the X that they get sticker shock with is not as bad as it might be because they haven't really talked to their accountant and recognized some of the tax benefits that I say may be, depending on the CCRC, may benefit them. One thing I do want to say, because I know we're getting near the end, we do encourage our clients when they're exploring CCRCs to make sure they look at accredited CCRCs, because there have been some CCRCs, even one in New Hampshire, that had some financial projections that turned out not to work, and they actually had to file bankruptcy. So always make sure you're looking under the hood, if you will, because you are buying an insurance product, not a piece of real estate. So make sure that insurance company is solvent and can pay you the benefits you paid for.
And I'd like to,
yeah, go ahead, Kathleen. Yeah, sure.
I'd just like to jump on that to say, one of the most important things you need to look at is the contract type, A, B, or C, and refundability of that one-time entrance fee. At RiverWoods, we have refundable entrance fees. So when you pass away or leave the community, 90-80% of that entrance fee goes to whoever you designate. Some communities have zero refundability. So understanding the nuts and bolts is really important. And don't go just because your friends go, you like the apartment or you like the cottage. Make sure you look at the fine print.
Yeah, and that leads into my next question, Kathleen, actually. So thank you. For people watching, listening, and maybe thinking, that sounds good, but I'm not sure, still want to think about it a little bit. What are some good resources, Kathleen, for folks to learn more?
Well, I happen to have written a 19-page booklet called The Insider's Guide to Continuing Care Retirement Communities. You can download that from our RiverWoods website, and you could take the booklet and go anywhere in the country and ask the questions. It goes through the how to qualify the organization, as Tom mentioned, financially, what the background is, things to look for. So it's a great practical guide to go and research, as questions to ask their CFO, questions to ask the residents. If you're curious, look now, make a plan. I think it's short-sighted to say my plan is age in place and then not have a plan. Just saying aging in place is not a plan. So look into a CCRC. If your plan is aging in place, cost out what the current prices are for in-home care. Look at how you have to renovate your home. Change is going to come for you. So do yourself a favor and make a plan for it.
A personal question, if I could. What are your own plans for aging, Tom?
So, good question. I'm late 60s. My wife is considerably younger by 4 years. We have already explored a number of CCRCs, different climates. I think people look at a CCRC as a final decision. We're looking at maybe having 2 CCRCs in the mix, or a home and a CCRC. People often look at the CCRC as kind of the elephant's graveyard, as opposed to, gee, maybe it's one option within my aging plan. Okay. So we know of one client who had a house in Florida, spent time at CCRC as their health declined. That's kind of the model we're looking at. But the key factor is we're not going to be a burden on our children.
Kathleen, how about you? Your own plans for aging, especially given that you work in this field, but that your own parents have decided to stay at home.
Based on my experience and based on being a solo ager, I am choosing a CCRC because I don't have children to burden my care with. And I've seen firsthand how people's lives get changed. I've seen people fall in love in their 80s. I've seen them take up new habits and become painters and writers and activists. And I've seen how rich and full their lives are. And that's what I want. I don't want to be stuck at home, not driving at night, living on one floor and calling that independence. I want something bigger for myself.
Well, we will have to wrap it up there, but we could have talked a lot more. I want to thank both of you very much for being with us today. It was really interesting, gave me lots to think about. Tom Sedoric, thank you for your time. It was good to be with you as always.
Thanks so much, Laura.
That's Tom Sedoric. He is partner and executive managing director of the Sedoric Group of Steward Partners, Global Advisory. And Kathleen, it was great to talk to you too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura. This has been a delight.
That's Cathleen Toomey, host of the podcast Seniority Authority and Vice President of Marketing for the RiverWoods Group, which is the largest nonprofit family of continuing care retirement communities in New Hampshire. Beyond Your Balance Sheet is sponsored by the Sedoric Group of Steward Partners Global Advisory. I'm Laura Kanoy. Thanks everyone for being with us.